Hi guys, so I'm back with another Idle Thoughts video. I've recently learned that it doesn't really matter what I say. So, that's fun. I'm I'm not gonna make these all depressing. I really don't want to. But the title of these videos is and will always be Idle Thoughts. And why that is because they're not necessarily depressing thoughts. They could be happy, they could be angry thoughts, they could be sad, they could be whatever. As long as they're just popping in my head, kind of free form. If I'm dealing with a problem, that's probably what's going to be on my mind, so that's what I'm going to talk about. If not, it could just turn into commentary. Idle thoughts is exactly that. Also, why was there no thing? The first one was kind of a depressing intro. In the sense that I was going through something pretty significant at the time. Actually, it's still a little loud, by the way. I'm still kind of going through that. That didn't change like, at all. But I don't know how low to make this stuff. We'll say that's good enough. Anyway, I'm still kind of going through it. That's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think. But that's a little too low. I don't believe it was necessary to say some of the things that I said. Of course, it's idle thoughts, and that means that whatever comes to mind is what I'm supposed to say, but I did also say that I was going to put a filter on it, and then I didn't. And I was listening over it, and one thing I do not have is a way with words. In fact, I probably need to take speech lessons, not for the way that I say things, but just because it's very hard to understand me. I don't mumble. People say that I mumble, but it's more the fluctuation of my voice, I guess you could say. In the sense that I don't know if I'm using this term correctly, but I feel like I'm very thick-cheeked. Like there's not a lot of clarity when I talk. Like the audio quality isn't bad, that's just me. I don't think I ever realized it before. So I'm learning. And while that word is a stressor for me due to past injuries that shall not be named, it's a good thing to learn. But learning can also be very bad for you. It can even affect your health. Like, and I swear I'm just using this as an example. Like when somebody that you love tells you they love someone else. depending on how much you love that person, and I don't mean the family kind of love, obviously, you see where I'm going with it. Depending on how much you love that person, that could literally break your heart. In fact, I'm sure, and I'm not basing this off of any research or anything, but it sounds logical, so I'll say it. I bet if you looked at how many people died of a heart attack as a result of someone breaking their heart, you might be surprised at how many cases there actually are. Now, I swore that that was an example, and it was, but I've actually almost had a heart attack before because of that. And I won't go into detail with who. I'm not going to get into any of that. But I came seriously, hazardly close. And, I mean, it was to the point where I was digging my nails into my chest on my hands and knees on the floor. I fell off of my bed and I couldn't breathe. And my heart was like aching. And I'm talking, if you've ever had appendicitis, it was that level of pain. It was sharp and it was bad. And I seriously thought that I was going to die at one point, which made, in retrospect and hindsight, be kind of dramatic. But I don't know. I'm not actually even going to pursue that thought, I don't think. Because that was a pretty bad time. A time that repeats, unfortunately, that I have no control over. I learned something today. I learned that I've, in my life, made more mistakes than not by a highly considerable percentile. In fact, I learned that only about 1, maybe 2 out of 10 things that I thought I knew was wrong. I also learned how I would react to such knowledge because of how I did react. I did not take it very well. There were so many times that I could just have avoided things by not reaching for my goals. And I know how backwards that sounds, how wrong it sounds, but every time that I reach for something that I desire, it's like fate punishes me. And I don't mean in the traditional, well, I guess not traditional, but the assumed, you know, mistaking a simple obstacle for the end of the world type of thing. I'm not talking about that. I faced those too. And they were very tough to get over, but I did get over them only for everything to go to shit. So not only did I not get my goal, I worked my ass off for that goal and then never got it. No, further still, worked my ass off for it and then was punished for some odd reason. I'm not actually stating that I believe that I was punished by a higher power or even by fate or anything. I'm not actually saying that I was punished. I didn't mean that literally. Just that it all went to, try not to cuss, but I think the 50s term, or whatever era term, is heck in a handbasket. Sometimes I wish I was more jaded. Sometimes I wish I could just be like the crooks of the world. Just not care about people. I care entirely too much about everyone. I mean everyone. Like, I've been in a holding cell before, and the whole time I was there, I was listening to people tell their sob stories, and it didn't even matter if they were true or not, because I got so swept up into them that I was just... I never claimed to know if someone's telling the truth or not. Not anymore. I used to. I used to be very arrogant in that regard, but it didn't matter to me if they were telling the truth or not. What mattered was that when they were saying this stuff to me, I felt something. Now, when I was a little kid, a little boy, that was a very big deal. That was Holy Grail level shit. That was legitimately Holy Grail level stuff, because I'm not entirely sure what happened, but at some point, if not at birth, my whole emotional system shut down. I used to think that I didn't feel anything because there was nothing to feel. But since then, I have thankfully started to feel things again, emotionally speaking. And I now know the truth is not that I was born without the capacity for those emotions, just that I was unable to manifest them. My psyche would not allow me to feel, in a sense, I guess you could say. Or to put it in much more layman's terms, I was suppressing my emotions, I guess you could say. And that's usually the result of something dramatic happening in your life, or so I'm told. But I have no idea what that is. I don't... If something did happen, it was before my earliest memory, so I really don't know. I have no memory of anything that could have caused that. But sure, that problem. And I don't actually even know where I was going with this, but hell, idle thoughts, right? So, the first time I ever felt anything, and this is a large part of why things have played out the way they have thus far. There's really no point in hiding anything legal. And what I mean by that is there's no point in hiding anything that doesn't affect me one way or the other, legally speaking. So my fiance, her name is Stephanie. Stephanie and Scott. She is funny, crazy, beautiful, and weird. She is truly one of a kind. The best thing about her is not the glimmer in her eyes. It's not the way her hair falls. It's not the look that she gives people that is just so adorable. It's not any of that. The best thing about her is the fact that she is very, very, very messed up. I think I've already cussed in this video, but just in case, I'm going to say messed up in the head. I mean, she has almost as many problems as I do, and I have a plethora of them, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And so we get each other. On a personal level, there are things that she knows about me that my own mother doesn't know about me, and vice versa. And that's honestly the best feeling in the world, is not being in love with someone. It's being in love with someone who also is almost like this perfect fit for you. The problem with that is the very same problems that she has are still problems. Let me explain. I'm not going to go into her personal life. That's her personal business. I don't want to offend. That's her. If she tells you, that's fine. I assume no one's listening anyway, but I'm not going to take the chance. In her brain, these guys, we all know the type of guy, ladies, who comes up to you, acts nice, dates you, sleeps with you, and then is a complete a-hole behind your back. And you leave him thinking, oh, I figured it out, you're not going to outsmart me, you're not going to trick me, only to find out later on down the road that he planned that whole thing and you have nothing on him because he made sure that you found out so that you broke up with him so that he looked like he wasn't the bad guy. So you could go keep doing it. I don't know if that last part was accurate or not, but you know the type of person that I'm talking about. She is a magnet for those types of guys. Only she doesn't realize that they're using her. All she knows is how they make her feel. And that is extremely frustrating. It's happened time and time again. Now, we'll say this. One of the guys that she found that for some reason or another happened to stick around, and he's starting to grow on me. But that is so annoying. Because I can't do anything about it. At all. Nothing. And it pisses me off, and I want to scream, and I want to yell at her, and I want to shake her until she finds some sense in her head. Like, you know, well, guys would be able to relate to this more. That thing that you do where you, like, outline the side of a woman's face. It's kind of like a threat without being a threat. Because you don't want to cuss at her. You don't want to actually hit her. You don't want to offend her so that she gets mad at you and retaliates. But you have to do something. So you just outline her face to show her kind of like what you could do if you're willing to go that extra mile. What you're on the brink of doing. Yeah, that's the feeling that I'm feeling now and every day that I have to deal with this crap. But I can't show it, and it's so annoying because I know in my head that if I show it, it will backlash on me tenfold, and I cannot handle that right now. I cannot handle that. And plus, I will admit, since this is an idle thoughts thing, and I did promise honesty, I will admit there is one other thing that does stop me. As much as I do hate to admit it. I am just completely head over heels for this woman. I have been to that point before where it was like, I'm done. And make no mistake, we've had our ups and downs. We've screamed at each other. We've spewed venom at each other. Broken up and blocked each other and separated. But we always came back. And hold on, while this is loading, I'm going to go to a party so that it doesn't mess up. But we always came back to each other, and I mean through impossible odds. There was one time when I broke up with Steph and blocked her. And that lasted all of maybe an hour and a half because she dropped everything that she was doing. She made a new Facebook account. She called me on my phone, which, by the way, at the time, she had memorized. So that was fun. Which, by the way, was completely unlike her. I mean, it's very unlike her. It caught me completely off guard, and honestly was the deciding factor at the time. But, that's the wrong one. She created a whole new account, and she was scrambling over every social media site to try and get in contact with me. And she kept calling me, and I blocked her number. I blocked her on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, because she had that at the time. She doesn't have it anymore. I'm trying to think. I think I even blocked her on Kick, which was a big deal at the time. And, oh yeah, and Skype. And this woman went to, I don't remember who it was, but I will say a friend of hers, and begged them for their phone. And she had my number memorized. So she called me on their phone. And because it didn't say Steph, I answered it. And I can't recite what she said to me for two very important reasons. The first one being that I don't remember, to be honest with you, but the second one being because even if I could remember the exact words, I could not repeat them without honestly breaking down right here and now. But she legit poured her heart out. And I'm talking that level of feeling. I don't know if everyone feels it or not, actually. I have no idea one way or the other, but there's a level of feeling that you can get to where you're so into it that once it's over, you just completely knocks you out. Almost to the point where you don't even remember what happened anymore. And by the time she got done talking, I said nothing. I couldn't say anything. I said nothing. That entire phone call, I said nothing. And she said what she had to say, and I was in tears. I was legitimately in tears. And I don't know if, like I said, I keep saying I don't know who watches me, but if you know me, and I mean know me, I don't cry. It's not a tough man routine. It's not because I'm some big boy or whatever. It's just because I've never cried. I just don't. For some reason or another, I just don't. I was bawling my eyes out. I was legit gasping for air. That's how bad I was crying. And she hung up. I didn't hang up. She hung up. And my heart stopped. And I called her back, and she didn't answer. Called it again, and eventually the number was blocked. Called the original number. It rang, but no one ever answered. Unblocked her on everything. Tried to contact her. Nothing. I was devastated. I was crying. I was ashamed. I felt nothing but that awful feeling that I don't even know what it is. And I laid in my bed, curled up on my side, tears soaking into my pillow, thinking that it was literally the end of the world for me. That if I didn't hear her voice, I would go crazy. And I cried. And don't expect me to say, but it was all made better because of this or that, because there was nothing. She didn't call me back. She didn't text me. She didn't contact me. I heard nothing from her. I heard nothing from any of her friends. No one talked to me. I was alone. Eventually, I did fall asleep. And that's when the best thing ever happened. I had 3 missed calls from Stephanie, video calls from Stephanie, on Skype. And she had texted me several times. I read the text and they were very panicky. I think one of our mutual friends contacted me too. I don't honestly remember. But I was so happy. I wasn't happy because she'd contacted me. I mean, I was obviously very stoked about that, but that's not what actually made me feel the happiest. What really did it for me was, if you've ever used video call, or if you ever tried to call anyone on Messenger and they don't pick up, they do to give you the option to leave a message, and it just kind of ends up being a voice clip on the chat, right? Every call had one. And I listened to them, and I could breathe again. Finally, I took a breath of air, and I just laid there. And my pit of sorrow that I had formed, balled up there in my bed, became cloud 9 as I listened to her messages and heard her voice say those 3 words. I love you. Please call me back. And so I did. I called her back, and she didn't answer. So I got worried. Maybe it was too late. About 30 seconds later, as I'm sitting here starting to feel bad again, as all those deep, dark from the pit feeling started to come back. She called me, and my heart tripped over itself. Like, you know that feeling that you get when your heart's aching, and it feels so bad that something so good happens, it can't feel good fast enough. So it kind of trips over itself in a sense. I don't really know how better to describe it, but it was that. Like, it struggles, like your heart struggles to react, and so the reaction just ends up being almost negative. Obviously, I answered it. She and I are funny, though. When we're going through shit like that, and when we're both expecting something that's like freaking horrible fight that's gonna end everything. Like we're in the call that's supposed to be us making up, and we're both just terrified that one of us is not gonna feel the same way, and or the other person's not gonna feel the same way, and so this is just gonna be like the worst day of our freaking lives. It's gonna end everything. So we're just kind of like preparing for that in our minds and in our heart. And so every single time it happens, because it's happened a few times now, she'll call me and I'll answer the phone, or I'll call her and she'll answer the phone, and it'll be silent for like 5, 10 seconds, followed by, hey, hey, and that's it. And then more silence. And then, what's up? Silence. Nothing. Just watching YouTube. More silence. This huge thing has happened. All of this drama, all this built up feeling, teenager stuff, because we were teenagers at the time, you know. And we're just sitting here having a conversation. Cautious as hell. Not even worried. I don't know if hell counted, by the way. Not even worried about, like, if we're on a timer or trying to get things straight. We're just, at that moment, our biggest concern is just being very careful with what we say, so it just comes out as hey. And I think that's actually really funny in retrospect. But anyway, that's just one story. I could tell you more. I have no problem telling you more. I could sit here and do a whole biography on the story of she and I, which I suppose wouldn't be a biography necessarily since it's both of us, but I could sit here and do a whole audiobook. We'll say that. On the various things that I remember from her and I being together. Like, for example, I remember this one time we skipped school, which we did a lot. I never skipped school before I met her. She was my, like, dark queen. And so, well, that almost was scary. Anyway, so we would skip school a lot. That's the main reason why my family hated her at first. They thought she was just a phase that I was going through, and she was just getting me in trouble, and I didn't need to be around her, be around that influence, which is understandable. You know, it's a perfectly rational thing to think, and I get that. Uh, Simple problem. I never got over her, so she wasn't obvious. Obviously, she wasn't just a phase. But back to the story. I'm getting caught off guard. So we skipped school. And we walked around town for a while. This wasn't the first time by any means, so we were pretty used to, me and her both pretty used to skipping school. And she was terrified to go home after school ended. She didn't want to go home and have to face her family. Um, so she said, let's just stay out all night. I've never done that. Keep in mind, I know you didn't know this, but keep it in mind, I went to school the town over, not in my town. There was no walking home at all. And my phone was dying, and it was a horrible idea, but it was the best idea. A whole night with her. Just us. And we were teenagers, but we were very respectful of each other at the same time. In a more weird sense, not in the traditional sense of respect. In the sense that teenagers are going through the changes that they go through, and so a lot of ideas pop into their head, and they're just learning how to guard themselves from those ideas, how to say no to what they want. But we had a pretty good handle on it. I don't think she and I ever got romantically involved, so to speak, until after I graduated. Uh, Mostly because it was illegal, and she and I have always been, for the most part, I don't know why my voice keeps breaking. For the most part, we've always been very legal conscious, in the sense that if one of us thought about stealing something, we would always bring it up with the other one, who would have stopped the first person immediately because it was always a bad idea. So we were always better together. Like we're both total kleptos. Not hardcore. I'm not going to say that, but we are in some capacity. I've always had this desire to just take things, but obviously I've never acted on them. I've come very close, but when I'm around her, I'll tell her, hey, you know what we should do? And she'll be like, no. She wouldn't even let me get it out. She'd just be like, no. Um, but this time I didn't say no. And so we did. We stayed out all night. We hung around the town, by the train tracks. We talked to each other. We loved on each other. We cuddled and kissed and things like that. Although not a lot. And it was amazing. And I was sitting there thinking, my God, what could make this day even better? Lo and behold, it got better. Because we literally stayed out all night. And there I was, in a town that I wasn't yet quite familiar with the girl that I loved more than anything. More than everything. I guess it really didn't matter because they're both true. But there was no way to get home. My phone was literally at 5%. It was my only lifeline. So I cut it off. And eventually we got tired. So we had to sleep. We had to find somewhere to sleep. But you can't just sleep in the middle of the road, right? So we do eventually sneak back into her neighborhood. Avoid her parents, who are outside looking for her, thinking she was kidnapped or something. Which technically I was kidnapped by her, but I won't get into that. Um, so we had to actively avoid them. Because, see, they knew me. But in their mind, I was the one corrupting her. Which is very backwards. Because I've always been Mr. Nice Guy. To a point. I've gotten more and more mellowed out as time has gone. But I've always been very conservative of myself. Do my best in school. Be very obedient. Be very respectful. Mind your manners kind of guy. That's just how I was raised. And so that was bullshit. That was straight up bullshit. The only bad thing that I did was condone the behavior. And I still don't regret that. But that's how they saw me because, it was their little girl. Their little, whoever. Various, because it's various family members, niece and granddaughter and things like that. Their family member, we'll say. So they're out looking for her, thinking I kidnapped her or something horrible, did something horrible to her. So we're actively, we're hiding behind bushes waiting for them to drive past. Or they're outside walking around and we're hiding behind trees and going around the other way to get past them. Like, legit shit. Eventually they do give up and figure she'll probably just come back in the morning. And they'll deal with it then. So we go to the park that's in the neighborhood. And we're just like, fuck it. This is about the best we're going to get for the night. Let's just lay down here in the grass and sleep there because, that's not going to end poorly or anything. So we do. And I don't remember if we used her put back or mine, but one of ours was bigger, so we used that as a pillow and leaned against it. No, that's not true. We each used our own. I remember that now. We were sitting by the bush at the entrance of the park, and we were laying up against the bush. And then the most amazing thing happened. It's probably going to sound very trivial. I'm not going to lie. It's probably going to sound very trivial to you if you've never experienced this. But I promise you, it is the most amazing feeling a human being can feel. Well, I'll say this. It's the most amazing feeling a protective human being can feel. Someone who likes that protective nature. To feel that protective nature. I mean, it was straight up ecstasy of the most natural form. And it was that I quickly realized that while she was dead ass asleep, freaking snoring at this point, I was wide awake. And it wasn't because I was trying to be. Eventually, I didn't fight it. But that was not actually even at all what it was. I'm very highly protective of my family by nature. But when it comes to people that I don't know, I'm usually more conservative of myself or my family, more guarded. I couldn't sleep because I was scared that if I fell asleep, something would happen to her. And that is the best feeling I've ever felt in my life, is that instinct to protect her. Because I'm not a brave person. I'm not courageous. I don't stand up for anyone. I can't fight. Although there's a lot of people in the world that seem to think I can fight because I'm a very good liar. But I can't fight. I can't be that guy. In fact, sometimes I'm straight up a coward. And I'm not afraid to admit that. It hurts to admit it, but I'm not afraid to. But that night, and that night alone, mind you, well, that night and every night following when she and I were together, a cop could have come up and tried to hit her with the baton. I swear to God, I would have grabbed it straight out of mid-freaking swing and beat his ass with it. Pardon my language, I'm sorry, I got emotional for a second. I honestly would have. A cop. And not felt bad at all. I would have beat him into submission. I was that protective. I stayed up all night, didn't get an ounce of sleep, didn't regret it at all, and watched over her. And it was at that moment, actually, because this is before the first story. This is before we had ever broken up. This is when we were still dating strong the first time. It was at that moment that I realized that I wanted to be with this person forever. I don't mean for my lifetime. I mean way past that. I want to see this person when I die and go to heaven. and be around this person in heaven for eternity. This person is the only human being on the face of the earth that ever actually makes me feel like I'm worth something. And she honestly did. She honestly did. And does. Most of the time. But of course, everything has an end. That which begins must also end. Eventually. And while that is true, that doesn't mean that the first ending is the last ending. And even though it has ended between us several times over, we've always come back to each other. But for some reason, it's still so scary to leave. It's still the end of the world every time. And I understand what that feeling actually is. I'm not trying to exaggerate it. Obviously, I survive every single time, except almost that one time. That was a completely different story. My dream is to follow her wherever she decides to go. Marry her and spend the rest of my life with her. Everything else comes second. Everything else is second priority because she comes first. She is the greatest gift that God has ever given me, including my own life. Because my life would be nothing but torment without her. And yet, in a cruel twist of fate, my life is torment because of her. Because I worry so deeply about the things that she goes through. All the darkness clouding her mind, making her think things that are real are fake, and things that are fake are real. And it's gotten so out of hand, I honestly should have just ended it years ago. There have been so many different times where any other person would have left and blocked her. There are at least 5 different occasions where something of that nature happened. To where any other person, and I mean any other person, barring family, would have straight up blocked her number and moved on. And yet she still doubts. Not that I love her. She knows that. I make sure that she knows that. I tell her every single day I get the chance to. She still doubts that she and I are meant to be together. And obviously, I'm not going to force her to do something she doesn't want to do. If she decides, no, I don't want to be with you, obviously, I'm going to respect that. And if I think that that's what should happen, as much as I hate to admit it, that is the right thing to do. But if there's one hope, one fragment of hope that we can get there, that we can push through all of this darkness together and emerge together and be together, I will fight my ass through the depths of hell to get there. I will scrape and cut and burn and beg and every other adjective in the English language to get there. It's not a matter of willpower. It's not a matter of dedication, trust, or love. It's just a matter of doing it. I will do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Because if we can get there, if we can get together again, our problems go away. Obviously not right that very second. But we are so much stronger together. I have not met a problem in this world yet, mine or anyone else's, that I truly believe Stephanie and I could not overcome. And there have been some pretty damning ones. Now, I'm not saying that we are going to avoid any consequences of our mistakes. I'm not saying that our decision will ever be to run. I'm not saying that we're actually going to solve the problems. I'm saying that we're going to survive them. Survive everything that comes our way. We may lose fights. One of us might end up in jail for all I know. But if one of us does, we'll eventually get out. And the other one will be right there waiting. Stephanie could go to prison right now for basically being the worst person on earth. They could give her 100 to life. And I would wait. I would wait right there. And I would visit her every day. And if she told me never come back, that's what I would do. I would say my goodbyes, tell her I loved her, and walk away. If she ever said goodbye, that's what I would say too. And I would just walk away. Because at the end of the day, as much as I want to be with her, to be around her, I'll be damned if I force it upon her. She has to want it too, or I will not do it. So long as she has those doubts, I'm not going to force her to do something she doesn't want. And if she decides she loves someone else and she needs my help to get to that someone, as crazy as it sounds, I will do everything in my power to help her get there. To marry that person. And to be with that person. And I understand that that's the kind of thing that people take advantage of. I understand that because she does that every day. She takes advantage of me every day. Of my compassion, my love for her, my devotion, my loyalty, my trust. She loves to take advantage of it to fuel her own desires. And I say nothing because I know what's important. And what's important is that we are always there for each other. What is important, Stephanie, is that we never leave.